Welcome, everyone. My guest today is Lead Analyst Logan Mohtashami to talk about what makes the U.S. housing market so resilient and why the housing bubble boys and forbearance crash bros have been wrong since 2013. Logan, welcome back to this special July 4th edition of the podcast. I have to say, your sartorial splendor today is pretty amazing. So this is a July 4th episode.
This is my Thurston Howell July the 4th gear that I thought I should put on today because I'm now an elderly statesman of the housing market, being close to 50, and I thought, what a way to talk about, the whole 14-year period. For those of you who don't know what we're talking about, before I joined HousingWire, before Sarah even knew me, I was known kind of as the American bear killer, right? Which is fitting for somebody named Logan, who is known after a Wolverine. Wolverines are known to take on grizzly bears. And every single year, recession calls were bad, housing bubble crash calls were bad. And then here comes years 20 to 2024. This is my period I've been writing about for 10 years before we got to this level. And we have defended our country, right? It's one thing what the Russian trolls or the Chinese trolls do. But domestically, you have to go after the demagogues and the doomers. And today we're just going to kind of present why. Because if I can't teach you why this is happening, then I'm failing as a coach or a teacher or as an analyst. But this way we can go back and explain, because even if home prices had a very negative pricing curve in the second half of 2024, we never got the housing bubble crash that people have been talking about since 2012.
So one of the things first I do have to comment one more thing about your outfit. You are wearing a turtleneck and a velour jacket, and it's July. But apparently you don't live in a place where it's over 100 like I do. That's all I can say.
It's called air conditioning, Sarah, because pretty much that's the only reason I can do this.
I have air conditioning too. Okay. Aside from that, you do look very distinguished. It's a very distinguished elder gentleman look. Okay.
The League of Extraordinary Gentlemen. That's what we call ourselves. The data miners that are left that are fighting the demagogues of the world.
Okay, that works for me. So I think this is really fitting because, like you said, you do like to take on these American bears. I've heard people call you like a permabull, as if like, oh, well, he's just always saying that everything's going to rise and it's always going to be good news. But that's not really true. I think knowing you as well as I do, what you do is you look at the data.
We have models, and anybody who has models and forecasts cannot be a perma anything. And the only people that say perma are the anti-central bank people. And the glorious thing for me is watching these grown-ass men cry for decades and decades and decades. And now here it is. Every year we're supposed to go into recession. Every year home prices are going to crash. And America kicked their ass, Sarah. It has absolutely been one of the most priceless things I've seen these people have to endure, that every year they troll out and grift out, and yet we sit here at top of the world, the most dominant power ever. And maybe Cleopatra in her prime, adjusting to inflation, had more wealth as the United States of America. So there is a reason why we're number one, and there's a reason why we haven't had this great recession that people have talked about, and there's a reason why we haven't had this massive housing bubble crash that people have talked about. It's because our country is better than what they think. And they will never stop. As I've always expressed this, how long have we done this podcast? They will do this into the afterlife. And even in death, with no ears, eyes, or a tongue, they will scream about the Fed's balance sheet until the dark abyss that below the devil's den, because they will not even be accepted in the devil's chambers. So this is who we're dealing with. And you have to go at these people face-to-face, live debates, get their forecasts and models, because anybody that's a model is not a perma anything, right? And this is why I want all of these men. It is many live debates and many forecasting models, because I know they don't know what they're talking about. I just need to get the country to realize what a fraud and a grifter and a coward looks like.
So in our latest housing market tracker, you outlined new listings data, and you were going through like, here's what it's been, because there's been a lot of talk just because we got some more inventory, like, yay, we have more inventory. And then all the talk has been like, oh, we're going to see home prices crash. Now, home prices are moderating in some places, but no crash coming. So you did this deep dive into the last, 20 years of data showing what what a stressed market looks like. So are you going to go over some of that today, or
Yes,
what are we going to hear today?
And what I did there is here's the reality. I've watched this group do this for so long that I know their tactics, right? And they do this every year. Every year we have a seasonal inventory increase, and every year they say home prices are going to crash. And then in the second half of the year, when median sales price starts to decline, they use that as the curve to do the down. It's so pathetic, guys. I hope any of you guys are listening. If this is all you got, you live once in this world that this is what you're going to be known for, right? You are too predictable. So the way to counter predictability is A, get them to forecast, but B, explain why it's not happening. And I think the last tracker article is to show the difference between, let's just take 2011 and 2024, right? 2011 was pretty much like the last year of home prices really declining. But in 2011, let's take 5 different variables. Number one, the new listings data. New listings data is growing this year. It's going to be about 7,700 shy from my estimates that I thought we would get. So it means it's the second lowest new listings data ever recorded in history. That means there's no real stressed sellers coming into the market, right? The last few years, we've been ranging at the lowest levels ever. But from 2008, I mean, especially let's take 2009 to 11, let's take that 3-year period. We were ranging between 250 to 400,000 per week. It wasn't that active inventory was exploding higher. The sellers that were coming into the marketplace were stressed, right? We call them distressed sales, not the sellers that will be buyers. So that puts pressure into pricing, right? So the new listings data, 250 to 400,000. This last week in 2011, it was running at almost 397,000 per week. We have a little bit above 70,000. There is a difference. The problem is that I see these people, they have no idea what the data is. They don't have their own data line sources, so they can't model anything out. So it was never going to have this major 20, 30, 40, 50% national home price crash theory out here. So that's number one. Okay, so we have no stressed sellers into the ballpark. Then number two is, well, in 2010, fourth quarter, over 23% of the homes were underwater. That is a function of also being a stressed seller. You don't have any selling equity, right? And then, let alone that almost 40% of homes in America don't have a mortgage. We have the lowest percentage of underwater homes ever recorded in the history of America. Reading is a good thing. If you just read the data and just looked at it and had a model, you could, number two, you knock 2 things out, right? Number 3, of course, active inventory is a lot lower now than it was in 2011, right? The peak in active inventory, taking the NAR data, was 4 million in 2007, right? So we were heading lower, but we're at 1.128 million. So there's not a lot of active inventory to force sellers to really compete one against each other. That's the supply and demand equilibrium. That's number 3. Number 4, the days on market back in 2011 was over 100 days. The last existing home sales report, after this is the 3rd calendar year of the lowest home sales ever recorded in history, is 24 days still. 30 to 45 days is what I want to see per the NAR data. That's a normal functioning marketplace. So now it's July the 4th. And the days on market are not there either. But then monthly supply, 3.7 months right now. Monthly supply is a very key data line because that also means that, even if it's a low inventory market, if there's not stressed sellers and monthly supply goes up, that means it takes longer to sell. That means you can get pricing pressure onto sellers out there. We had home prices authentically decline in the second half of 2022 on a month-to-month basis, but that was also the biggest crash in home sales in history. So monthly supply, active inventory, new listings data, stressed sellers are all not here, but also there is no major increase in foreclosure data coming up. And this is number 5, is always going to be the killer for all these people. This is the one where I go to all the newer tours and say, you put this on my grave. Because since 2012 to 2024, we've been promised a housing bubble crash from a group of professional grifters, and yet they keep on talking about a foreclosure crisis. And when we look at the data, and this is the key, This was a once in a lifetime event. This is why nominal home prices since 1942, reading is a good thing, doesn't really decline much. We had a little piece in the 80s, but the 2008 housing crisis was a unique once in a lifetime event. We had housing credit deteriorating in 2005, 2006, 2007, 2008. Then the job loss recession happened. None of that's here, ever. So my job, right, when I started to realize this in 2014 and 15, that there's so much bad information that you have to counter this with data, but you also have to go after these people. So yes, you can accuse me of being very pro-America. Oh, I love that one. Please accuse me of that. But I am bounded by the laws and facts of data out here. And I think that's where the misinformation and disinformation, there is no models from these people. And now that we're sitting here in 2024, we can prove it.
I love it. So we were recently at a US Bank event, and this event it really stands out for they have the biggest screen I've ever seen behind the speaker. Like I don't even know how high that a screen is. And so you were able to have your charts like 20 feet high, and you pull out the foreclosure chart and you talk about, oh, let's go see where it is. And it's like this tiny little thing on the chart. Just today, I got served an ad. I was on YouTube and I got served an ad by some foreclosure, like, here's how you can make money as a like foreclosure analyst or something, because they're increasing every day. And I was like, wow, those people are going to not be making very much money. Give us some context of foreclosures right now, which are increasing, but are coming off such a low level. What does that look like?
After the COVID-19 recovery was finished for us, right? So for people who don't know what we're talking about, on April 7th, 2020, I wrote a COVID-19 recovery model. I gave people certain dates and data lines to track to get the recovery finished, because it was going to happen in 2020. But after the recovery portion was over, the housing market was people used to use the term forbearance. That forbearance itself was going to, create this epic wave of foreclosure. Some people even use 10 to 50 million. Forbearance was done by October of 2020, right? Because the majority of people that made over 60,000, my God, if you had just read the labor data, all of you forbearance crash boys, bless your hearts. You guys were so entertaining for all that whole period of time. We dragged your carcasses out for 2-3 years. In any case, all those people got their jobs back. They're going to stay in their homes, right? You're not going to basically. It's the interesting part is some of those people that took forbearance right away, they wanted to get out of it as soon as possible so they could refinance, right? So in any case, the foreclosure data is actually even outperforming what I'm expecting, because I thought by the time we restarted this, we'd get back to the pre-2019 trends. We haven't even got there yet. So we're at historically low levels on 30-day, 60-day, 90-day, 120 foreclosure activities, near all-time lows. And when the foreclosure process starts, let's assume hypothetical, when eventually the job loss recession will happen, and the 30 days will increase, the 60 days will increase. It will take minimum 9 to 18 months to get that supply into the marketplace. Whereas in 2005, 6, and 7, 8, the foreclosure process was escalating to a peak. And then the job loss recession happened. So the variables are, you cannot have two different economic cycles than housing in 2002 to 2011 versus 2012 to 2024. This is like a historical event, and how extreme the data is. And for those that read, they could see the difference. Those who visually see, you could see the difference. If you can't read and you're blind, you can't see, then I get it. It's difficult. But if you have the ability to read and you have the ability to see, it's not that difficult. This is why these charts, when we go out around the country, they're popular, because we point things out to very simple terms and we go, that's not it. You cannot run 2008 housing models because the credit models are so different.
So where are we on foreclosures?
I mean, we're not even pre-COVID levels. We're just too small. We're not even back to a level that I assume we would have already been into. We would have got back to the pre-COVID-19 trends. There's not a story. We restarted the foreclosure process, so some of the old data lines come into the system, but there is no push, right? There's a traditional 1 to 4%, always some kind of loan in some stage of delinquency in housing. It's not exploding. It's 2024. right? And it doesn't happen, right? So when a job loss recession occurs, then we can go into that discussion. But people are using a model that doesn't exist. And let me tell you something, it has been an absolute honor to defend the United States of America against these demagoguery cowards who have run here every single day, opening their mouths up like they're housing experts and can't forecast or do anything. So, Lord, bless me with the utmost energy to do this for another 10 years, because we're going to get these people to forecast and models and everything. We're going to get as many live debates because you chose the wrong country to mess with.
Love it. Oh, love the cat in the background too. Your cat is making a July 4th appearance.
This is my other cat, Romulus, right? Who does not like the other kitties that have entered this household.
Okay, so one of the other things that you always say is that we have a secret weapon. We are the envy of the world from an economic standpoint, especially from a housing standpoint, because of the 30-year fixed mortgage. So explain why that is such a something that benefits us so much.
Before I entertain that story, I just want to say, you people on your YouTubes, Twitter, and Instagram accounts that are saying the 2017 ARM loans are going to be a disaster. The 2019 ARM loans are going to be a disaster. You know, it's interesting. We had this discussion where somebody said that the 2017 ARM loans are going to blow up and all these people are going to foreclose. It's like the person's payment went up a couple $100. Our exposure to ARM loans are the lowest on planet Earth. I'm going to repeat this again. Our exposure to ARM loans are the lowest on planet Earth. Why? Because other countries, they don't have a 30-year fixed mortgage. A 30-year fixed mortgage is a fixed debt cost and then wages rise, right? That's one thing. Other countries don't have this. So our ARM loans are even structurally different after 2010, right? There's no more exotic loans, 228s, 327s, option R, all these things that the recast rate will be so high that two people could be working. It doesn't matter. We don't have those kind of ARM loans anymore. They're done, they're finished. So the 30-year fixed loan is a fixed long-term debt cost. And the benefit is that every year your wages rise, that debt cost goes lower and lower as a housing, you know, in some cases, property taxes or insurance rise. But it is a product to keep you, incomes rise, fixed debt costs, wages rise, especially in an inflationary period, your wages rise faster. The US is protected. It's protected its middle class. And this is why boring is a good thing. I think for those who follow me in the last decade, I've constantly, like, one of my war cries were just, we will never ease lending standards. Lending standards are still very liberal. But because we have this 30-year fixed products and every debt is boring, the debt structure is boring, we don't have to worry about what they're going in Canada. My God, Canada's doing 90-year loan modifications. My Lord, other countries have to do these loan we don't. It's a 30-year fixed product. Wages rise. We deleveraged a lot of debt during the housing crisis years. Those homeowners are in a very good spot, let alone the 40% of homes that don't have a mortgage. So we are in a much different structural position because we have a 30-year fix and other countries don't. Team America, bleep, bleep. Yes, that's why. That's why they hate us, right? And the second chart I always go is like the FICO score charts are always like, all these people go, it's FICO score inflation. No, it isn't. The score has been the same. Even Mark Calabrio didn't even know the data line was this. FICO scores have stayed the same trend since 2010. When qualified mortgage came in, pretty much any like sub 620 FICO score was gone. You can't even see it in the data line. You got to get your, Inspector Gadget glasses and look at that thing. Because positive cash flow people buy homes, right? You don't have struggling cash flow. This was my argument against the Urban Institute for many years, where I said, no, lending isn't tight. We have FHA, VA, anybody can get a 620 FICO score. It's just that when you're struggling with credit card payments or auto loan payments, you don't typically have the buying capacity to buy a house. So we did it because we kept everything boring. That's why the 30-year fix was a key. It shielded us against inflation, right? Our wages grow faster during an inflationary period, so it gives you a kind of inflation hedge. A lot of people think real estate is an inflation hedge because of prices. No, forget about prices. It's that 30-year fixed payment, and it's a boring long-term debt product. That's the key, right? There is no recast to an extreme payment or anything like that. Boring is a good thing, and this is why the world hates us for it. They don't have the plumbing systems to have a 30-year fix.
Okay, A timely news item, right, is Freddie Mac's proposal to have that second lien, that second mortgage. Does that
Not
increase risk?
This is such an overblown story. Um, I don't know if people are familiar with blended loan products. It's basically Freddie Mac has to buy or will buy, any second that's on top of one of their loans they originated. People's like somebody was saying there's $1 trillion of stimulus. No, it's a 78,000 max. They're only putting in $2.5 billion into it. It is this small of a storyline in real terms, right? It's not that crazy of a loan product. There's no risk. See, everybody goes into 2008 mode right away, right? It's a disease. Like there's Gold's disease that have been here for thousands of years. And then there's 2008 mental disease that everybody thinks, oh my God, these people are all like everybody tells me American homeowners are struggling cash flow. I'm like, have you looked at the FICO score chart? What are you talking about? The FICO score? No. It's not much of a story, right? It isn't. It's not. It doesn't have a very high velocity to keep the economy booming or anything like that. And it is so small in the $52 trillion home value market that it won't move the needle much. And one of the things in the previous decade, a lot of people kept on going, why aren't people cashing out on their homes? They don't need to, right? Look at that positive cash flow, right? It's nothing. So what happened is when rates finally got below 3.25, a lot of people did take advantage of that. And there was like, oh my God, these people are cashing out. It's 2008. See, it's a 2008 disease. It has infected men like zombies. And you see this constant drivel of trash that's been out here. And here we go again. It's, oh, Freddie Mac's going to buy this. Here we go, 2008 again. No, the educated class has to get people to read so they can understand. Not every loan product is a 2008 option arm loan. Okay, so not that horrible of a product, not that big of a velocity, not as big a story as people are making out to be. It's very small in the big picture of things. The pilot is like $2.5 billion. Not that big either in the big scheme of housing when you think of this multi-trillion-dollar marketplace out there. And the loan to value, the nested equity positions of homeowners in America is the highest ever recorded history. I'm not even talking about the 40% of homes that don't have a mortgage. I'm talking about people that have debt. Especially after the run we've had on prices, we're going to be okay. We're going to be okay. The Freddie Mac program is not going to change the housing market in any big scale, nor is it going to be a big stimulus to the U.S. Economy either.
So one of the things that you've talked about, to get lower mortgage rates, we need the labor market to break. That's what you think is going to be the key for the Federal Reserve and also just for the bond market, right? It's also one of the keys to why the housing bubble boys or the housing crash bros. One of the reasons that is such a kind of a crazy argument is that people would have to lose their job in very large numbers to want to give up their mortgage, to stop paying on a mortgage where they have such a low interest rate. Can you talk about, like, yes, you see that the job market is bending, but it's not breaking. Do you see this big job loss recession coming at any time in the near future?
When this podcast comes out, we're going to have the job openings data. We're doing this on Monday, so it's jobs week. And when we talk about deterioration in the labor force, the great financial recession was the authentic, job loss recession where the housing sector lost a lot of construction workers. But also, we're in a different time in our history where the baby boomers are leaving the marketplace, right? Remember the whole COVID-19 recovery market with labor? We said, listen, we're going to get job openings to 10 million. And, we had one missed jobs report in May of 2021. It was like, well, we pay everyone to sit at home. No, we don't. We're Americans. We work, right? In fact, job openings are going to get to 10 million. When the next job loss recession hits, depending on what the government response is, corporations are going to be a little bit more mindful of what they're going to lay off in scale terms. Now, of course, if a company is bleeding money and it needs to cut, the jobs are lost every single week. People get fired every single week. We're not like Europe. We can't fire people that don't do their jobs well. But in this case, when the next job loss recession hits, we're also going to have the baby boomers be leaving the workforce. So there's going to be a certain structural employment level that needs to have where the functioning economy is. So it's a little bit different than, let's say, the 2008 great financial recession, where we had a very high percentage of unemployment rates and the structural debt markets, things weren't working. So when it happens, I would say look to kind of like the tech recession. Unemployment levels. We had 2.5 million people will lose their jobs in that recession. I think the risk of not doing enough to keep employment higher is, let's assume that the Fed goes, well, the unemployment rate is 4.8% or 5%. We're losing jobs, but that's still a very low unemployment rate, and we don't want to risk getting the economy overheating again. That to me is a viable discussion to have, especially with this Federal Reserve, because we can do stuff to limit damages of any recession going out in history. Like, we have the ability to do that. Can we or will we do it is another question. But I don't see the backdrop needed to what we had in the unemployment rates getting to 10%. Or anything of that nature. And also our demographics are a little bit, people are leaving the workforce, right? So companies just realized what it was like to kind of like compete against labor, and they didn't like that. Bad taste in their mouth. So the next job loss recession won't be as extremes as we saw in 2008. But there is a good discussion to be had that can the Fed be gun shy or the government be gun shy when the next recession comes.
Okay, well, wrap up our special edition for us.
Okay,
Why
so
are you
this one's going to be a fun
excited?
one. So the last thing is we're going to go over just a brief thing. It's a shame, Sarah, that we didn't know each other 10 years ago. This could have been like our 10-year anniversary podcast on absolutely thrashing the recession calls and housing bubble crash calls. Because remember, if you didn't have COVID-19, we'd still be having the longest economic and job expansion in history. So we go through everyone really quickly. 2013, home prices were going to crash because of the shadow inventory. The shadow inventory has been here from 2013 to 2024. It is a mystical creature that does not exist, but it gets talked about because the shadow knows. Okay. Awesome tactic, Grift. Love that one. 2014, rates went up. Purchase application data went to 21st century lows, right? It's not that far, actually, where we are right now from 2014 levels. Inventory grew to 2.4 million. Roughly around their NAR data. That was the last authentic year we actually had inventory growth. Home price growth cooled down. Rates fell. Housing went back up. Demand picked up again. So housing was more affordable then. 2015, people thought at the end of 2014, QE, quantitative easing, was going to end and then the world was going to die. That didn't happen. They thought rates would go to 10 to 12%. The 10-year yield fell after that, actually. 2015, 16, we were talking about a PMI recession. The dollar got strong. Manufacturing is a recession. That means when manufacturing is in a recession, the whole U.S. is going into recession. Those who followed me, oh my God, those were fun years. 2015, 2016 PMI recession. We're like, okay, we're not kind of a manufacturing economy and the service sectors are holding up well. So that housing bubble crash didn't happen. Then it was like the 2016, 2017 period was interesting because home prices got back to the bubble high. So everybody said, well, it's a bubble then, it's a bubble now. That was 2016. Okay. Didn't happen. Why? Inventory didn't escalate. There was no forced credit sales market destruction or anything like that. 2017, there was really no good reason that year. I don't know what they were even saying. But I think the shock that home prices were still rising in 2017 made that crew become really quiet. Then 2018 came. Now this is where the fun starts, Sarah. 2018, mortgage rates were heading toward 5%. Every professional grifter out there is like, here it comes. Home prices are, guess what number they use, Sarah? They use the 20% line again. Just throw it up there. 20%. I like that big round number. Okay. Purchase application data never even had a negative trend year over year. This is where I knew everyone's a professional grifter, has no idea what they're talking about. Literally, purchase application data was flat for the year, right? Home sales did fall. Inventory didn't really grow in a few parts of the US. It did. And then I was like, oh my God, everyone sucks at this. So we just going to have to light these people up for the next few years, man. Because when it happens, when there's actually a big event, they're going to go all in. 2019, the growth rate of pricing was cooling down and everyone's like, here comes a crash. Here comes the 20%. The 10-year yield fell. I think those who remember in 2018, I was at an economics conference. Everyone said, rates are going to go up, rates are going to go up. I was like, no, rates are going to go down. Economy is going to slow a little bit. Rates are going to go down. So we had a V-shaped recovery in 2019 in existing home sales. You could go back and see it in the data. And then 2020 comes, right? Years 2020
The
to
big year.
years 2020 to 24. This is my baby. I've waited 10 years for this. Housing authentically broke out before COVID hit us, and then COVID came. They all went housing bubble crash on that time, right? And I was like, no, we're going to recover. Like by May 18th, things are going to be like different. So I'm willing to forgive everyone on the COVID-19 housing price crash because it's their first pandemic, right? So I'm willing to forgive. Then 2021 was forbearance, right? 2021 is forbearance. Oh my God, this was hilarious because here I am, January, February, March, going on Bloomberg and said, everyone, home prices are about to escalate out of control. Does anybody? Everyone's like, no, forbearance. Reading. These men don't read. The history of human civilization has taught us that men that don't read become fanatics because they could get manipulated by Zero Hedge and Russian trolls and all these people. So forbearance, we said it was going to be not an issue. Forbearance was declining the entire time, right? The problem was home prices escalated out of control in 2021, right? So all these people that said housing was in a bubble in 2020, literally the opposite happened. Prices went up 20% in 2021. So that was a failed theory. Then 2022, my own affordability index broke. So I was thinking, oh my, this is not a good thing. When the 10-year yield breaks above 1.94%, home sales are going to, take a big hit. But the problem, what happened in 2022 is early on in the year, inventory kept on breaking lower and lower. We had 240,000 homes. So here comes home sales crashing, right? Everybody got on board on the home price crash theory. But there was one person on November 9th, 2022 that said, listen, we don't really break below 4 million in this country. So if I believe sales are going to get down to that level, if that level holds and rates go lower, the whole dynamic's going to change. So remember, Sarah, we did all these videos, forward-looking data is getting better, forward-looking data is better. Everyone in 2022 went to home price crash, 2023. By the time June came, we're all at all-time highs. Can you have a more untalented group of American people than this crew for the last 13, 14 years? No, we can't, because they keep on messing up. So out of shock, rates went from 6 to 8% in 2023. So they're okay. The second half of 2023 home prices didn't happen. And then in 2024, so I was going to call it quits, Sarah. I said, guys, you had your 12 years. That was it. Broken clock. A broken clock, something that is not actually living, has a better economic game than you guys. But they couldn't stop. And here comes 2024 and all that. So my whole tactic, Sarah, was to challenge all these people to live debates. We've had live debates. All I want is your name and face, your forecast in 2024 and your last 5 years for credibility, and show us your model. They can't do it. Why? Because they're professional grifters. So I was going to let it go. And then in January and February, they're like, oh my God, prices are going to crash. And I was like, okay, this is war. For the next 10 years, all we're asking is these cowards to either take me on a live debate or to actually forecast. Give us your price forecast for 2024 and then give us your last 5 years so we have some working models. They can't do it. So every time I said, come on, let's go. Give us your name. Nope. Blocked. Now I think they finally have come to an understanding that don't come in this neighborhood with that Mickey Mouse stuff, right? We've documented this from 2013 all the way to here, right? So we have models. We believe in economic cycles, can show you the data because why? Mother economics, she's a serial killer. She will leave you crumbs to get caught. The data will give you crumbs, right? That's why the tracker was created. And we do not believe in the concept of anything as a perma bear or perma bull. We believe that the numbers guide you because the numbers are the closest thing to the handwriting of God, right? And we move that forward. But this is the correct way to do it. Now, I understand why they do it. Oh my God, doom, porn, everything. Come click my websites. All these people. I was like, but not here. Not in this country, not in this neighborhood. This is the United States of America. We are the only economic superpower in the world. And our country just kicked your ass for the last 13 years. So on July the 4th, You go look at that American flag, you give it a hug and you apologize to it and say, forgive me. I let the Russian trolls mess with my head. And then welcome to the light. Cycles come, cycle goes. Prices will fall at one point. But the last 13 years was not yours. It was mine. Because this man forecasted every single year. He didn't care. He took on every trolling person in America day in and day out. But we want to teach you guys economics. So once you guys understand, then everybody gets it. Everybody's on the same page. That's why the tracker is created. That's why we have live weekly data. That's why we track everything. And this is the proper way to do economics since the Peloponnesian War.
Since the Peloponnesian War. Logan, thank you for being on. Thank you for giving us your take on the last 13 years and why people have been, especially a certain group of people, have been wrong about a housing crash ever since really 2013. Thank you for being on. Have a great
July the 4th. And it's July the 4th, everyone. Pop out some great music, some wonderful food, drink. This is a night for America.
It is. Don't wear a turtleneck, though, because you will expire from heat exhaustion. Don't be like Logan in the turtleneck department. Thank you, Logan, so much. We'll talk soon.